Good morning. Hope you're having a great day. So spending 3 weeks in the Holy Land of Israel brought a lot of special things. And it taught me a lot about the character and the people. One day we went ATVing, or as in Israel they call it traktronim, in Samaria, in the hills of Samaria, right near Shiloh, ancient Shiloh, where the tabernacle sat for nearly 400 years before the temple was built. I'll tell you about it a different day. But I met a remarkable young man. His name was Boaz. Boaz is 34, talented man, effusive personality, outgoing, warm. And he lives in one of the yishuvim, in one of the little enclaves in Samaria. Awesome person. Life of sacrifice, of dedication. Probably could have been working in tech, could have accomplished so much, but this is his passion, to settle the land that God gave the Jewish people, the land of our forefathers and foremothers. And it reminded me of a very moving story. Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, I think it was 10 years ago, it was at the Rebbe's 10th yahrzeit. We brought him to speak in Boston, in one of the hotels in downtown, and he gave a beautiful speech. He's a remarkable man who's the chief rabbi of Efrat, also the founder of Efrat, which is in the Gush. It's considered the capital of Gush Etzion. About 11,000 people live there. And he says a remarkable story about this week's Torah portion, which really speaks to so many of these Jews and the power of who they are. It was the early 1980s, or the end of 1979 maybe, when the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent Rabbi Shlomo Riskin on a mission to go to the Iron Curtain, to go to the Soviet Union, which is then Jews were not allowed to practice Judaism in and were not allowed to leave from, and to go visit and strengthen the Jewish community. The Rebbe would send many people there, Chabadniks and non-Chabadniks. Gurney's parents went twice on a mission and left all their kids with the grandparents and went to Russia twice to do this mission. Rabbi Riskin went, and he was in Leningrad. Today's St. Petersburg. And of course, wherever you go, you feel like the KGB is watching you and following you, and he's looking behind him and he's worried. And he's meeting with the people and trying to be secretive. Everyone's terrified. And then he goes to Shul on Shabbos. He comes to the big Shul in Leningrad, which today is a huge Shul with a Chabad rabbi there. And he comes to Shul, and of course, who's in Shul? Only older people. The young people are terrified to come. They'll lose their jobs. They'll be punished. The older people had nothing to risk, and the Russians didn't really care. You're old already. There's nothing left for you much in life. You could go to Shul. And he comes to Shul, and he gets an aliyah. And after he gets an aliyah, the guy next to him whispers him. He says, by the way, tells him in Yiddish, we have a Kiddush here also after davening. Come join us. Fine. Rabbi Riskin goes with him to the Kiddush. They go down to the basement to this dingy little room. No windows. Tiny room. They take out vodka. They make Kiddush on vodka. They give Rabbi Riskin a glass of vodka to make Kiddush on, and then they have some herring and some kichel, nothing, and they start talking. They ask him to say a Dvar Torah, and he says a Dvar Torah, and then he turns to them and says, why don't you tell me a Dvar Torah on this week's Torah portion? And one of them says, L'chaim, I'm going to tell you a Dvar Torah. And he says, in this week's Torah portion, we learn about the laws regarding how you have to deal with workers, the relationship between a boss and his worker, between someone who owns a company and someone who works for him. And the Torah, of course, tells us about a laborer. When you have someone working for you, biyomo titen scharo, you have to pay him that day. You can't even let the sun set before you pay him. It's an obligation on every single boss to treat his worker in the right way and to pay him so he could go home and take care of his family. So this guy in a little shul in St. Petersburg, in the basement with no windows, it wasn't a little shul, but there was a few people there. He turns to the rabbi, and rhetorically he asks a question. He says, I don't understand. It says that God does everything that he tells the Jews to do. Well, we're God's workers. We're doing what we have to do in this world. Why doesn't he give us our payment? Where's our reward? Why don't we see it? And then before he could wait for an answer, he says, I'll tell you the answer. He says, you see, the Talmud tells us that there's two kinds of laborers. There's a laborer that works for the day. Every day he works for you, and whatever you want him to do, he does. He has to be paid every day. And then there's a contracted worker. You give him a job, do this and this, and when you finish, I'll pay you. The Talmud tells us that someone like that, you don't have to pay every day. So this guy looks at Rabbi Riskin and he said, you know what? We're God's contractors. We're contracted by God from the day we're born till the day we pass away with a mission in this world, what we have to accomplish. So therefore, he doesn't pay us on the day, but when we finish our mission, we'll get paid and rewarded in the world to come. Rabbi Riskin was so moved. He was the rabbi of a big, beautiful synagogue in Manhattan. Life was comfortable, he had everything he needed. And at that moment, he thought to himself, as he said later, what's my mission? What am I contracted for? What am I gonna do in this world that's gonna make a difference, really? And at that moment, he decided that he's gonna move and emigrate to Israel and settle the land that God gave us. And together with many families of his own community in Manhattan, they made Aliyah and they founded Efrat, which is 12 miles out of Jerusalem, between Jerusalem and Hebron. And Bethlehem, they founded this little place in 1983, which is on 1,500 acres of land. Today it boasts 11,000 people that live there. It's considered the capital of the Gush Etzion. And Rabbi Riskin today, who's probably 80 years old, to remember this special Shabbat every week in his own shul, on Shabbos, he makes Kiddush on vodka. To remember that Shabbos in St. Petersburg, where they taught him the message of what it means to be contracted by God. You know, we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah. It's a time of Elul, it's a time of introspection. What's our contract? What are we accomplishing in life? What I saw more than ever when I saw Boaz that day in Samaria, when I met these people who could probably be much more successful in sense of affluence and materialism, sacrifice so much because they love the land and they want to settle the land that God gave us. I saw people with a mission, people that were contracted by God and they knew what they had to do. May we all think about this and take it to heart as we come to Rosh Hashanah. And may we all fulfill our mission that God has given us in this world. God bless you.